Tonight, school pride, a funding boost for repair works across the EP. And after 2 decades of service, a veteran councillor bows out in Port Augusta.
This is Southern Cross News with Tim Hatfield.
Good evening, but first tonight, the reduced speed limit over the Joy-Baluke Bridge in Port Augusta will be there to stay, with the Department of Transport saying it's in the interest of public safety. Our reporter Amelia Simpson is at the bridge. Amelia, the department says the bridge speed is set to stay at 40 kilometres an hour.
That's right, Tim. The Freight Council is holding fast to its decision after it reduced the speed limit from 60 kilometres an hour to 25, before bumping it back up to 40 kilometres an hour after the Great Western Bridge closed. They say they have no plans to change the 40 kilometre an hour speed limit in the name of pedestrian and cyclist safety. The department told Southern Cross News in a statement that any decision is in the interest of public safety and is considering more options, including fencing and new signs. Yet the SA Freight Council says it's inconvenient for the freight industry.
Speed restriction is a problem for both the local community and the freight industry, and it means that we have National Highway operating at 40 kilometres an hour, far below the expected standard.
And the Freight Council is now pointing the finger at the Port Augusta City Council, saying it failed to repair the Great Western Bridge.
Something that we can't expect to exist for an extended period of time. We will need a solution. We will expect the Port Augusta City Council to contribute to that solution, given they caused the problem.
While the Freight Council maintains the reduced speed limit is a huge inconvenience for transporters, the council here in Port Augusta says their main concern is pedestrian safety, their reasoning behind closing the crumbling Great Western Bridge. They say they're now in talks with the state and federal governments to reach a solution. Tim?
OK, thanks Amelia. Amelia Simpson in Port Augusta there. 4 Eyre Peninsula schools will receive a funding boost from the state government as part of a statewide school pride program. $600,000 will be shared amongst the schools, which will be invested in much-needed maintenance and upgraded facilities.
It's a much-needed boost to facilities and morale to state schools on the Eyre Peninsula. The state government investing $13 million in upkeep to South Australian schools, including $150,000 to Port Lincoln Primary.
We don't have to use money that we might use for paying SSOs or making smaller classes or computers to keep the facilities updated. We can use this money now and then use that money to support student learning. 4 schools on the EP will share in $600,000, including $250,000 directed to Streaky Bay, $200,000 of which will go towards fixing up the 2 primary schools in Port Lincoln. It makes the students feel more pride in the school and themselves if their classrooms are freshly painted and have good quality carpet. The funding is part of a bigger component by the Department of Education, providing maintenance to 110 schools across the state. Principal Wilson, happy local schools were not overlooked. Sometimes we feel in the regions that we miss out a little bit and that perhaps our schools don't look as fancy and as nicely maintained as the schools in the cities. The funding falls on the back of the state government's pledge to invest $15 million in solar panels and LED lighting to reduce utility bills in state schools. Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
A proposal to increase admission fees at the Whyalla Leisure Centre by up to 2% has been rejected by Council. The YMCA requested the charges, which would have seen families pay around 30 cents extra for a swim. Council voted 4-3 against the proposal, saying the current economic conditions in Whyalla made it unjustified. Fees, however, are expected to rise by the CPI inflation rate, with the operator allowed to do so without approval. The future of the TELEAH picnic ground in Jamestown is uncertain. The state government is selling off the grounds to private enterprises, restricting the general public's access and altering historic walking trails throughout the forest.
The 140-year-old TELEAH forest is in the process of becoming privatised.
The government are trying to pass it over to community or council or someone rather than run it themselves.
And with the sale of the forest, the scenic walking trails and picnic grounds will be reduced.
They've been there for a long, long time, and that picnic area is extremely important to the regions. It gets a massive amount of visitors.
The community, though, is worried the proposed greenways do not include the TELEAH picnic ground and most of the existing network trails.
The community want to keep the parts that are critical to the community, like the walks, the picnic ground, the Heiss and Wilson Trail areas, they want them to remain as they are.
The upcoming sale means this picnic area behind me will be closed. This means that all access will be cut unless the state government makes this area a greenway.
The current proposed greenway will reduce the picnic grounds to a token trail.
Please protect those walks and those picnic ground facilities and that down there in the forest so that it can be used by the general public.
Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us. Still to come in tonight's local news. After 2 decades of service, a veteran councillor bows out in Port Augusta. The details ahead. Welcome back. A Port Augusta councillor sat for the last time in council last night after having had his say in the community for 22 years. Councillor Phil Gregan was met with congratulations for his service and is urging others in Port Augusta to follow in his footsteps and just get involved.
Councillor Gregan's words, you get out what you put in. After retiring from the Port Augusta City Council yesterday, his 22 years of service to the town speaks for itself.
I've worked under 2 mayors, 4 city managers. The people that are elected, they're good people to work with, and I've seen a few faces go through the chambers, so it makes me feel really old.
Mr Gregan says he started with the Port Augusta Council when he was involved with the Lions Club and set out to challenge a councillor in 1995.
And I said to the next election, I'm going to knock you off, which I did, and I said to the Lions, in 2 years' time I'll come back. That was 22 years ago.
Serving as Deputy Mayor for 8 years and acting Mayor in 2013, he says Port Augusta's changed its image for the better.
When I joined the council, we started a process of changing the image of Port Augusta. We started planning the foreshore, which took a long time.
Looking forward, Phil says he'd like to see an Aboriginal person on council.
Port Augusta is the greatest place in Australia, and so are people. But they do have to look after your city. You've got to be prepared to put something in.
For now, Phil doesn't just have his engraved mug, but a 4-legged reminder of his time in council with his dog Sam, named after Port Augusta's mayor. Amelia Simpson, Southern Cross News.
A spike in rural property theft across the Yorke Peninsula and the mid-north has Port Pirie police calling for public vigilance, and despite numerous lines of inquiry, police are yet to catch the offenders.
Just because someone looks like a farm contractor does not mean they are one. Unwanted thieves have been roaming rural properties and wind farms in the past 3 weeks, stealing farming equipment that's not theirs to take.
There's been an increase in rural property thefts, so in the Yorke and Mid-North areas. Police are calling for public awareness after the spike in the number of rural theft and break-ins. These have been occurring more frequently in the last few months, to such that we now are asking the public to be more vigilant. With seeding in full swing, farmers have been without their equipment, negatively impacting their returns. What has been stolen is tools, machinery and stock. And police are urging farmers to take proactive measures by increasing their security. Lock up or make sure that their farms are secure. Police say to maximise security, farmers should look at measures such as installing flood lighting and security cameras. They also say that having an awareness of local crimes can help stop farms from falling victim. Even on rural properties, it's important to lock your house and also remove keys from vehicles and any stock equipment that they may have. Inquiries into the matter are continuing. However, 2 men have been arrested and will face court on July 26 following residential break-ins. Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
Mental wellness initiatives on the Eyre Peninsula are seeking government support to keep their programs operating. Mentally Fit EP runs free seminars in Port Lincoln, but fears a lack of funding could see the end of their service.
The statistics are clear. 1 in 5 people will experience mental health issues in Australia, and almost 100% will know someone suffering. Health and wellness programs on the Eyre Peninsula continue to seek local funding to keep vital programs alive, but exclusion from the state budget has Mentally Fit EP pondering their future.
It is astonishing to me that SA Health hasn't looked at this program and seen the results that it is showing. What I fear is that our government funding organisations look at that and think that we can continue to support ourselves.
Mentally Fit, run by West Coast Youth, holds free seminars through the year, helping raise community awareness about mental illness, as well as breaking down the barriers caused by the associated stigma.
A big part of what we do is also about educating the community about mental health and mental health problems.
The program, originally started by the late Kirsty Traeger, continues to produce remarkable results.
We've had over 200 people take charge of your life, and we're showing over a 90% improvement in mental wellness and ability to cope with day-to-day life stresses.
But the lack of funding on a state level means the programs rely on local support to keep them afloat.
Every time I apply for a grant with Bendigo Bank, I feel bad that we're reapplying for the same thing.
Mentally Fit continue to seek support from Minister Vlahos and believes additional funding would significantly help sufferers on the Eyre Peninsula. Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Broken Hill's mayor has received an unexpected donation in the post this week. A rare painting by local artist Sam Byrne was sent to Daria Turley as a special gift from a woman living on the other side of the world.
A piece of the city's history has returned home.
It's actually travelled across the seas, and it's a Sam Byrne art piece, and it's from 1970, around that time.
The painting was donated by Carla Shearbeck, who purchased the painting in Sydney 40 years ago and is now living in Ostrava, a city in the Czech Republic. In a letter to the mayor, she said the painting travelled with her worldwide as she moved from place to place.
Every home she went to, here was Sam Byrne's artwork, and as she's come to the end of her life, she wanted it to come back to its home, back to Broken Hill and back to Australia.
The piece is titled Mining by Electric Light, and it details the mining heritage of the city. Sam was said to be an interesting character, even using local minerals to enhance his artworks.
Making the frames himself, so he'd use recycled materials, he'd use beer openers on the back. You know, there's all sorts of different elements we can look at within a Sam Byrne.
The Broken Hill Regional Art Gallery is looking toward a retrospective of Sam's work in the next couple of years.
We've actually got in the permanent collection rehang that we've just completed this week at Broken Hill Regional Art Gallery, we've got 4 of our Sam Byrnes on display, so feel free to come down and have a look at them.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us. When we return after the break, science students step up to the challenge in Whyalla. We'll head along next. Welcome back. Over 200 students from the Eyre Peninsula gathered in Whyalla today for the Rotary Science and Engineering Challenge. Organisers say they hope to encourage high school students to consider a career in science and technology sectors.
Science and technology are growing industries in Australia, yet we're struggling to lure students into the sector. Rotary, in conjunction with UniSA's Whyalla campus, teamed up this morning, hosting a science and engineering challenge.
And utilise, classroom theory into real practical means. So these kids do things like develop a Mars rover, they do an articulated hand, they look at electricity networks.
Each activity was based on projects that have been developed in the real world, giving students an insight into current trends.
Insight, inquisitiveness, innovation, and inspire them that they have the ability within themselves.
So this is an opportunity for us to do this for the kids that are interested in science and engineering, to bring it to Whyalla.
With South Australia on track to be a leading supplier to the Defence Force, getting kids interested in science at school has never been more important. It's hoped days like this will get kids interested in considering a career in science.
Use everyone's ideas to be able to come up with solving things.
Having other people's ideas and learn from other people.
It is a good thing to learn new things about, and yeah, it's enjoyable.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Broken Hill's Memorial Oval will host its first game in over a year when Central take on South this weekend. The Oval has undergone extensive irrigation and repair work throughout the season, and the league says it is ready to go.
Empty right now, but on Saturday, Memorial Oval will be awash with local footy once again.
Really excited for footy to be back at the Memorial Oval. It brings a different dynamic to local footy. We get a bit sick of the Almas and Jube games, so the Memorial is a great venue for spectators.
Last year, Mr Nash and the local board made the call not to play any footy at the venue.
The big picture decision was made to forego footy in 2016 at Memorial. and give them the time and the planning to make sure that they get it right for 2017. Slight hiccup at the start of the year with some turfing issues, but now we're ready to go, and Centrals have got a swag of home games at the Memorial to finish off 2017.
7 of the last 9 rounds of the season will be played at Memorial Oval, which is a big boost for the Magpies. The rest of the season is shaping up to be a close one, with North and South slugging it out for top spot and a free pass into the grand final. Central and West are gunning for third on the ladder and the chance to play in a prelim. And local footy is still reeling from the visit of Anthony Koutafidis on the weekend.
There was probably triple a normal crowd, and obviously the North Footy Club would have been rocking and rolling on Saturday night. So it's a win-win-win, and let's hope we see far more of these players that have just recently retired from AFL footy get out to Broken Hill.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Well, time now to see what's biting out on the Gulf waters. Here's this week's fishing tips.
Welcome to another week around the Gulf fishing tips from Port Pirie. Last weekend, dodge tide, snapper everywhere. How does that work? I don't know. But anyway, there's plenty of those fellas out at the moment. So start at the lowly rip and start working your way back towards the creeks on Port Pirie side. You'll do all right. King George whiting, try over at this moment the Barrows Beach area in the berryweed. You should find yourself a good feed of that. Still, don't forget your salmon, trout and garfish. They're all floating around at this particular time. Getting closer towards the middle to late run of the winter, you should get some beautiful snook as well.
G'day and welcome to this week's fishing tips from Port Augusta, Jewel North. Well, it's basically anything with an S in it at the moment. Squid, salmon and snapper. Lots of squid basically everywhere. The tip there, that last half an hour just before the sun goes down, drifting along the front of the shacks. Snapper down around the seabird, but also up around the powerhouse wall. And also salmon along the creeks. Over in Chinaman's Creek, they've been getting a great deal of salmon over there.
There's been some really good numbers of salmon, trout right through Whyalla, land-based in front of the Foreshore Caravan Park early in the morning. And over towards Point Lowly off the rocks. So if you're land-based fishing for salmon, there's plenty of those. Now's the time to get amongst them. There's also been some good snook available, both land-based around Point Lowly and also out in the boats. If you're out in the boats, just try and stay out a little bit deeper. There's been some great snook just offshore about a K or so around the rocky points. For the snapper scene, again, the rip has been hit and miss. Those fish that have been caught have been around the 6 to 8 kilogram mark. If you venture further down south, there's been some good numbers of table fish down there, around the 2 to 3 kilo.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Squid have been going okay over the past week. There have been some snook down in the proper. There have been a few whiting. They're a little bit patchy in the bay, but there have been some nice whiting caught along the North Shore, especially late in the afternoon. Better whiting catches have come from between Taylor's Landing and Carcass Rock. Over at the main wharf, salmon and big tommies continue to run there, especially when the pilchard boats unload. Moving up to the coast to Tumby Bay, there have been some good whiting within the bay, and also some squid, a few snook, and also some good sized squid out there. That's it for this week. We'll see you again next week with more fishing tips.
Well, stay with us after the break, your Friday forecast and the weekend weather. Welcome back. We'll check of the weather now. Another mainly fine day today across the board with 20 in Port Augusta and Port Lincoln, Whyalla and Port Pirie on 19 degrees. Broken Hill, though, a little bit of cloud and 18. On the national satellite, a low out west is pushing that cloud cover our way as a high moves over the country's east. On the waters, the winds to 10 knots into the north tomorrow, the seas below a metre to the south. Sunrise again at 24 past 7. So looking at tomorrow, fine again for Port Augusta with 21 the top, 20 in Whyalla and in Port Pirie with a bit of cloud about. Port Lincoln could see a shower with 19 and a fine 20 in Broken Hill. And then looking ahead to the weekend, we do have showers forecast. Fingers crossed they do come through. 18 and 17 for Port Lincoln on Saturday and Sunday. Cleve 17 and 16, 19 and 17 in Woodner. Whyalla and Port Augusta both also set for showers over the weekend, both with 19 for Saturday and 17 for Sunday. Kadina 17 then 16. Port Pirie also 19 then 17 over the weekend, 15 then 14 for Clare. Broken Hill could see a burst of rain on Saturday and then fine into Sunday, 19 then 18. And finally tonight, a big thanks to everyone who came down and supported our Give Me 5 for Kids barbecue in Port Pirie today. Our station manager reckons it was one of the best yet, with some big donations handed over and plenty of people entering the raffle, and of course bucket loads of sausages flying off the barbie and into the mouths of hungry locals. Money raised as part of Give Me 5 for Kids goes towards helping sick kids from across the region when they have to head to Adelaide for treatment. You can keep donating online, head to the website and be sure to select Spencer Gulf as your region. A great cause. Well, that is the local news for this evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow night at 6:30. Stay with us now for Thursday footy as the Crows meet the Hawks. I'm Tim Hatfield from the team here at Southern Cross News. Have a good evening. Good night.